All right. Good
We
on
are
you.
here. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Here with my brother, Mr. Ryan Wagner. How you doing, dude?
Hey, good. How you doing, Richard? Good to see you, man.
No
Good to see
complaints,
your
man.
face.
No complaints. May's been a weird month for a lot of different reasons. So it's kind of like that in between the summer and April was really rocking. It's right now just kind of a mellow May, I guess would be the best way to put it. Maybe even a little melancholy May for a variety of reasons. Happy to be here. Happy to be here with you.
Mellow May.
And gonna let you start with your team. It wasn't necessarily something that I expected. To the viewers, I just want to make a mention before we even jump into topics.
Go ahead.
Our most recent episode with my good friend Brett Bandick, we did a start bench cut on NBA dynasties, featuring the Los Angeles Lakers of the 80s and the 2000s, as well as the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, of course.
One of my favorite Celtic / Patriot / Bruin / Red Sox fans, Mr. Steven Ridlon, gave me a little shit and was like, why aren't you talking about the 80s Celtics? In my opinion, it was the Lakers' decade, but the Celtics were vital to the NBA just as much as the Celtics were in the 80s. So, Rids, have no fear. I'm going to make sure that in my argument with this dude, I'm going to bring up the Celtics, and you'll see why shortly. Before we get there,
fair enough.
Want to talk about my boy's favorite football team, the Indianapolis Colts, signing former Super Bowl MVP, Big Dick Nick Foles, Napoleon Dynamite, man of many names, a man of many parts. He's your quarterback backing up Matt Ryan going into the new season. And I understand the connection there. You know, they tried to make it work with Wentz. It didn't. Frank Reich, of course, formerly had ties with the Philadelphia Eagles during their Super Bowl run.
I'm good with Frank Reich, FYI. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's been a weird little situation with your football team because of the fact that, you know, you had Peyton Manning for so many years. Andrew Luck had a great career. Unfortunately, it was short due to injuries. But it's been a revolving door at the quarterback position in Indy. And I got to ask your thoughts. You have two former league MVPs at the quarterback position. Yeah, you got Matt Ryan and you got Nick Foles right now. What are your thoughts going into the year? What are your expectations?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked me that. You know what's really interesting? I got a lot of passion, a lot of not anger, but a lot of passion, a lot of stuff to say about the Colts right now, who are my team for now and for my entire life. So don't get it twisted on that. What's really interesting to me is that during the Peyton Manning years, right? During the Peyton Manning years, our weakness was we're undersized. You know, I remember I remember a Monday night. It wasn't a playoff game. I remember.
I already know what game you're talking about. I remember it too.
A Monday night because one of my friends, if you're listening to me, Tom Ascalisi, yes sir, I'm talking to you. Anyway, I remember the what do you call it? What do you call it? I'm sorry. Bear with me a second.
Were you in that game? Did you get concussed in that game? Did it have everlasting effects?
It was a winning game, and the Colts ended up winning in the last quarter. But the most interesting part about that game was that the time of possession. The Dolphins ran the ball down our throats. We had the ball probably 19 minutes of the entire game.
I'm going to suggest something to your point here.
But he gets in the game and he just does his thing with Marvin Harrison. Back in the Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne days, whatever. So
Okay.
we're gonna say, go ahead. Go ahead.
My suggestion to what you're saying is the Colts went up and down the field. And, when you're saying undersized, I'm assuming you're talking about your defense, which was well documented during those years.
Yes, sir.
They were not known for having a great defense for most of that run at anything average defense. But
that's right.
With Peyton scoring as frequently as he did, I can understand where you're going with that because, it puts the defense on the field very frequently. And if you're even talking about the beginning of Peyton Manning's football life, a lot of interceptions in that rookie year, a lot of interceptions those first 2 years before he became the perennial MVP guy.
All right. It was horrible.
Before he became that entity. This current Colts team, though, you got 2 former league MVPs at the quarterback position, arguably the best running back in the league, arguably the best lineman in the league,
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. How do you feel about your prospects this year? What kind of year do you expect?
That's the point I was trying to make, and even though I was sputtering and couldn't even talk at this time, but I'm really happy about the difference between the Colts during those days. This was my point. The difference between the Colts during those days and what they're at now is their strength is their defense. They were a threatening defense. Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner and all those guys, they will kill you. And I love it. I love it. It was so painful to watch, even though with Peyton Manning we had success. It was painful to watch. When you watch your favorite team, when you're watching the Giants, Richie, on TV, right? When you're watching the Giants and you're on defense, if your team can't stop the run and the other team is just imposing their will, just fist fucking you, it's painful to watch. It's painful to watch.
This is the deal with the Colts, and I'm going to make it short and sweet and make it make sense.
All right.
For years, I agree with where you're going that you guys have been a finesse team. Now, granted, the quarterback position hasn't been as prolific because Rivers was a lot older when you got him. Granted, he took you to the playoffs. He almost beat Buffalo.
Correct.
You did the Carson Wentz experiment, and in between there, you had Jacoby Brissett.
I haven't even talked about that, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
It's not even his fault. He shouldn't have been in that position.
It's not.
Anyway,
but yes.
Anyway, the point is, you guys have become more of a physical team over the course of the last couple of years. Both on the defensive side of the ball and also having an imposing O-line that has made and propelled Jonathan Taylor into most people's first pick want of fantasy football.
Right.
And with the Ryan Tannehill situation with Malik Willis breathing right behind him, looking to take over that job, and with the controversial playoff loss last year between bad coaching from Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill proving that he is who we thought he was, I got to say that going into the year, yes, I like the Colts. The reason why I even bring up Nick Foles is because I think he's an extension of the playbook and an extension to the field for the head coach. He knows that system well, and you got 2 veterans, and in the event that Matt Ryan should get injured, you have a capable backup. They're not doing something crazy like the Chicago Bears did, and they're like, you know what? We should give this guy a big contract because he was really great for 11 games. But you guys didn't do that. You guys have a solid backup quarterback for a former league MVP, 2 guys both coming to a team that has quite a bit of talent and quite a bit of star power and is a well-coached team. I think you guys are going to have a pretty good year.
Well, if I may make a comment, the reason why this is the Richard Hicks Jr. show is because of the entire paragraph / thing you just said. Amen on point. I'm not kidding. I would love to sit here and argue with you about that point, but I can't. That's totally correct.
Well, you shouldn't because you're a Colts.
No, it's 100% correct. Yeah. But what I'm
all right, we're gonna.
Yep.
No, go ahead. You're good.
What I was going to be pissed about is if we traded away someone like Darius Leonard, or some of our our defensive backs or whatever.
You guys are in a position right now where the AFC is going under a weird time. You got a lot of quarterbacks, younger quarterbacks, that are in the West predominantly, and of course Deshaun Watson joining the Browns.
Right.
I would have to say that most of the young cats are quarterbacks in the AFC. I would have to say Matt Ryan is one of the oldest, if not the oldest starting quarterback in the AFC. Him and Russ are considered the old guys.
If I
in
may,
the NFC, you got the old guard with Brady, Rodgers, and Stafford.
If I may, Richie, I have no problem with Matt Ryan being our quarterback. The only problem I have is that after we tried to experiment with Phillip Rivers, what are we doing? They're the same age, or he's one year older or whatever.
No, he's older. He's considerably older. But the point is, Ryan is in that mid-30s range. I get where you're going.
Yeah.
Guys are lasting longer now. To answer your question about
that's true.
This was not a strong quarterback class going into the football season. It wasn't. It was not a strong quarterback class.
Are you talking about the draft?
Yeah, it was not a strong quarterback class.
No, you're correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the Colts have tried to find the guy, but I don't think that they're going to just throw money at a guy if it's not the guy. So they've been doing Band-Aids for a little while. They've been kind of doing stopgaps. But Matt Ryan is a capable quarterback.
Let's face the facts. Let's face the facts here. I am still butthurt about Andrew Luck retiring at 29 years old. And if Andrew Luck ever sees this episode, this show that we're doing right now, let me look right into his eyes and say this to Andrew Luck. I respect the hell out of you.
2 beatings.
When we drafted Andrew Luck, the one cool thing I noted about him is, as a Notre Dame fan, as a person who grew up in South Bend, Indiana. I mean, I'm not going to talk about religion or whatever, but I'm not Catholic. Whatever. I just happened to grow up. I was born and raised near South Bend, Indiana. So I was a Notre Dame fan. Always been. My entire family, Notre Dame fans.
Yeah.
During the 3 years, I guess, I think Andrew Luck, correct me if I'm wrong, graduated with a degree from Stanford in 3 years.
Yeah.
My point is this. During those years, as a Notre Dame football fan, you could always point the direction, this or that. Oh, if this would have happened or this would have happened, we could have, made this happen. This would have happened. During those at least 2 years that we played against Andrew Luck at Stanford. We play Stanford every year. He kicked our asses.
Yeah.
Both times, just beat the shit completely to the point where you respect it enough. Right? To the point where, and of course, we happened to get lucky when Peyton had his fusion surgery or whatever, and we had the number one pick. I was all about Andrew Luck, that's right. And then he had that lacerated kidney.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't the end of his career. He came back the next year and he had he was the comeback player of the year, was he not?
This is the thing with Luck.
If Andrew Luck's 10 seconds, Richie, I'll take it back to you, okay? 10 seconds. If Andrew Luck ever sees this show, this is not disrespectful. I love Andrew Luck. I respect the hell out of Andrew Luck. I'm just butthurt that that was our quarterback. That was our quarterback for the next generation. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
Yeah.
They had a generational quarterback in Peyton. They had another one in Luck. But the thing I like about what the Colts have done is that they found a way to win without necessarily having a top 3 quarterback in the league. And that's something that is rather new to them, because if you think about pretty much our adult lives and even before, the coming of age years, it was Peyton and it was Luck. And that's what you had. And now you're having stopgap guys while they're building the team in other areas, and they're changing the culture of how they do things over there. And that's kind of my final thought on where the Colts are going and what they look like this year. But Jonathan Taylor right now is the big dog, and he's pretty much sharing that with Derrick Henry.
If you're the Colts owner, or if you're the Colts owner, Richie, or the Colts manager, who is your favorite quarterback that you could realistically get?
Right now, I don't think that's actually part of what they're thinking. I really believe that this is a year-to-year evaluation, because when you sign two veterans to short-term deals, I don't think they're thinking about that right now. I really don't.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's where I feel, and that's how I feel about that. Now, I mentioned before we started the show, Brett and I did a start bench cut on NBA dynasties, and normally we do start bench cut to finish the shows. I have an important final thought I want to hit on for this one, so we're going to actually go right into it now. Normally, I play the judge, but when we do two-man shows, I go head-to-head with my guest. That's what we're going to do here. So we're going start bench cut NBA dynasties.
Oh, fine. All right.
We got the 80s Lakers, the 90s Bulls, and the 2000 Los Angeles Lakers. You got to start one, bench one, cut one. We'll let the viewers tell us who they think made more sense here.
I can't wait.
Wax?
I can't wait to hear what I'm looking forward to the most on this, Richie, is the viewers' response. All right. The reason I say that is because I'll go first. Of course, that's my job, whatever. But you understand the incredible bias I have on my point in this, right?
I get it. Wax, talk about it. Wax.
Okay, fair enough.
Talk about it.
When Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, when Kobe Bryant entered the league, all I wanted him to do was lose, because he was compared only because he was compared to the next Michael Jordan. I didn't want him to be better than Michael Jordan. I get it. 7 rings, 8 rings, whatever. Mm-hmm. However, during the course of Kobe Bryant's career, I started to understand and hear him talk, and you hear him talk to the media and this and that. I started to respect Matt Cut. This is not HBO, right? No, I've heard you curse on the show before. I respect the fuck out of Kobe Bryant. During the end of his career, I was like, I want Kobe Bryant to win. I want Kobe Bryant to win. I didn't want him to surpass Jordan necessarily, but I was like, Kobe Bryant, he's such an intelligent. He cares about the community. He cares about kids. He's intelligent. He speaks like 3 or 4 languages, or well, at least English and Italian, whatever. But the point is that, like, it took me a little while because I was biased. It took me a little while because I was biased, right? Before I finally started to root for Kobe Bryant. So let's put that aside for a second. Well, Magic Johnson. All right, now I'm a kid. I'm watching the Lakers, whatever. Okay, fine. Magic Johnson was only 32 years old. I want to thank Richie Hicks Jr. for inviting me onto the show, because he gave me the opportunity to do a little bit of research. I wanted what I was doing, Richie. I looked up how old Magic Johnson was when he got diagnosed with HIV.
He was so young still.
He was only 32.
So young.
Jordan was 30. Wait.
Jordan had two retirements. Technically 3.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. But Magic was only 31 or 32 at the most when he.
Yeah, he still had a solid 4 years ahead of him.
That's my point.
Guys retired a little younger then, even if it wasn't for the HIV factor. Guys last longer now for a litany of reasons.
So here's what I want to do, Richie. Here's what I want to do. I want to answer this question in twofold. All right. I want to disregard the first person. I'm going to tie Magic and Jordan because I don't know what the hell would have happened. Because when they first met in the finals, basically, well, not basically, I mean, literally, like Sam Perkins hit a 3-point shot, and the Lakers won the first game.
Yeah, Jordan missed the potential game winner.
No, Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen missed the game winner.
We'll revisit that. It was Jordan.
No, okay, fine.
It was Jordan. And it was his shot. It was his
Jordan. It
was his signature shot.
After Sam Perkins hit that 3, Scottie Pippen pulled up from half court and had an in and out, whatever. It almost went in. Anyway, they went and they won 4 games straight.
Yeah.
Right. They never played each other again because after the Bulls won their first championship in the Jordan Pippen era, is when Magic Johnson went on the camera.
Yeah.
And unfortunately said that because of the HIV virus I have in my body, I'm forced to retire from the game of basketball.
It was a different world back then.
Go ahead.
Less education on the virus. It was a different world. If God forbid, if Kevin Durant or LeBron James or anybody that is important in the NBA now were to contract that virus, they would still be able to play. It was a different world back then. And it was a different phobia. There was a phobia.
You're right.
There was a phobia attached to that disease. So basically, you're telling me you're cutting the 2000s Lakers and the 90s Bulls and the 80s Lakers you got in a tie.
Yes.
I respect the shit out of your answer, and I'm going to jump onto my reasoning, and some of it might bleed into your reasoning. I'm cutting the 2000 Lakers as well. Before I just dismiss them, I want to talk about what made them great.
Okay.
Shaquille O'Neal, for the first 3 years, because the other 2 championships were not a Shaquille O'Neal-led team. He was already in Miami. The three-peat Lakers, 2000 through 2002. In my lifetime,
yeah,
he is the second most dominant player in league in my lifetime, but with the exception of Michael Jordan, during those 3 seasons.
Okay.
And that alone makes them one of the greatest duos of all time. Now, granted, I'm not mentioning the 60s Celtics, not because I don't think they were phenomenal, but because they were before my time. I'm basing it on teams that I've seen play.
I respect the shit out of that, Richie. Yes.
I'm cutting the 90s Bulls.
We didn't see that. We weren't there. All right. Go ahead.
I'll tell you why I'm cutting the 90s Bulls and why I give the 80s Lakers a slight edge.
Cut it. Ooh, okay.
The 90s Bulls were undefeated in the finals, so a lot of people would be like, what's this asshole talking about? But this is the reason why I give the Lakers a slight edge. In 91, when the Bulls beat the shit out of the Lakers had an injured James Worthy, in addition to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar no longer being a member of that team. It was a rookie Vlade Divac. I feel that
he was. That's right. That's right.
I feel that the Bulls caught them. I feel that the Bulls caught them at the right time.
This is the reason why this is the Richie Hicks Jr. show, not the Ryan Wag show, because Richie Hicks Jr. knows the shit out of his history. Go ahead.
Point I'm making is, and the reason I remember it so richly is, even though I am a New York Knicks fan, Magic Johnson was my favorite basketball player. He's the reason I gave a shit about basketball. And
nice.
I was a kid, I was young, but I was rooting for the Lakers. Now, as far as the reason I'm picking them over the Bulls, yes, sure. The Bulls have the accolades. Michael Jordan is the greatest player that ever lived. That is not up for debate. I believe wholeheartedly that in the era that the Lakers won 5 championships in, they had to go through better teams than the Chicago Bulls did. That is no indictment, or that's no diss on the Bulls, and I mean this with all respect. But the Indiana Pacers, the New York Knicks, my team, an aging Pistons team, an aging Lakers team, and let's be real, an old Utah team, just like an old Chicago Bulls team, because they're both old when they played each other. They don't stand up, in my opinion, to the bad boy Pistons, the great Celtics teams of the 80s, who could have been the team of that decade were it not for the Lakers. They won 3 championships in that decade of the 80s. Michael Jordan never defeated the Celtics.
Joe Dumars.
He was 1-2 against the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, that's right.
I give him all the credit. I give
Right.
him all the credit for taking the league to new heights. But I do believe that a contributing factor.
You're my boy Richard Hicks seeing this. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I do believe that a contributing factor to the Bulls dynasty was that 3 of the most prolific teams in the NBA all got old at the same time. The Pistons, the Celtics, and the Lakers.
Pistons, Celtics, and Lakers. Good. Wow, that's a really good point. Yeah.
But then again, to be fair, we could also say that the 76ers were getting old when the Lakers
You know
beat
what?
them.
Let me give you
And
some
it was
credit.
documented well
Let me
in
give you
the
some
HBO
credit.
special.
Can I cut you off for just 1 second? And I'll turn it back over to you. Let me give you some credit on that because I do also believe that all of those Lakers teams in the 80s, as well as the 86 and 81 Boston Celtics teams of Larry Bird, would have beat the 92 Blazers. I do believe that.
And I'm not trying to take a shit on the Bulls.
No.
The Bulls could have played in any era.
I'm agreeing with you on that.
The Bulls could have played in any era. I just strongly feel that if the years were a little closer, because the thing that I try to remind people is that the Bulls of the early 90s, for the most part, were the same team as the Bulls of the late 80s. They just didn't get to their peak yet because they were getting smacked around by the Pistons at the end of the decade and a little bit by the Celtics as well.
I like it.
But they were still the same team. The big addition to that team that made shit different was when they drafted Scottie Pippen and then Horace Grant.
Well,
then you have that little Jordan retirement in between.
But then after that,
they lost to the Magic because they didn't have Horace Grant and they didn't have a viable power forward. So what do? They go out and get Horace.
Right, they didn't have.
They go out and get Dennis Rodman, and they have another 3P.
Correct.
And some food for thought, just to throw this shit out there, talking the era of if the Houston Rockets, who won championships in the middle of the 90s, would have played the Chicago Bulls in either 94 or 95. Now, I'm going to be fair. 94 would not include Mike. And were it not for Hugh Hollins, hang on.
You weren't going to be fair. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Were it not for Hugh Hollins calling a bad foul on Scottie Pippen.
Hubert Davis.
Yeah, but Hugh Hollins was the referee. That bullshit foul call.
Of course. You're making a Bulls argument. Yeah.
I'm being fair.
Absolutely.
The Bulls would have won the East that year. But lost to the Rockets. And in 95, with the returning Jordan, the Rockets would have beaten the Bulls.
I don't know about the Rockets, but yeah, we would have won that game. We would have won that game against the Knicks.
Rockets would have beat you. Knicks took them.
Let's say they do, whatever. But the
Rockets swept an Orlando Magic team.
The Hubert Davis, from the top of the key shooting.
Yeah, it was a bad call.
Pippen goes up there and they call it a foul, and he makes because Hubert Davis from North Carolina is a great.
It was a bad call. It was a really bad call.
But
it was a bad call. It was a bad call.
He made all 3 and won a game.
It was a bad call, Wags. And if they don't make that call, and I'm going to take it a step further.
Chubby.
I'm going to take it a step further.
I'm a chubby.
Take it a step further.
Bitch tits, chubby, 15-year-old at this time in my life, and I had nothing else for me except for the Chicago Bulls. So when I don't think really upset. Go ahead, Richie. Sorry.
I don't think the New York Knicks win that series without that call. But I also am going to take it a step further. I don't think the NBA wanted the Bulls to win without Jordan. I really mean that. I don't think they wanted Scottie to win without Jordan. I really mean that. And I've seen some shady shit in the NBA. I mean, after all, we did have a referee who went to jail. You know, they try to have people forget about that.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I forgot his name, but yeah.
We're gonna have to speed up this. We're gonna have to speed up. We're gonna have to speed up the pace here a little bit.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. What's next on the agenda?
Because we're talking about things that can be deemed a little shady. Is tanking a thing? The Cincinnati Reds making it look like one. Two-ended question: can teams with limited financial resources compete in today's MLB? With the exception of the Tampa Bay Rays, the answer to me is no.
Only with one exception. And I think we talked about this the last
What, that you have Nolan Ryan and Tom Seaver come out of the same draft class?
Richard, hear me out. We only talked about this, and this was the last time I was on you invited me onto your show, and I appreciate that. It was awesome. Maybe a month and a half ago, something like that. I made a comparison to the 2015 Royals, but the point was that the only time small market teams can do that is if first of all, their farm system has to be freaking awesome.
Yes.
And they have to do it before their stars.
Before they have to get that scroll.
Yeah. 6 year or 5 year, 6 year or 7 year before they're about to get that payday.
Yeah.
Look at the Cubs from last year.
Now with arbitration, shit's changing. They go to arbitration all the time now.
I threw up in my mouth so many times last year during summertime. A year ago. From today, a year ago. We were in
Javi Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant.
If anybody's watching the show, when I say we, Richie, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm talking to our listeners. When I say we, I mean the Cubs, and I mean our that at that time a year ago, we were in first place. Everything's looking great. We happened to go on 11-game losing streak, but let's say we didn't do that. Let's say even during that 11 games, we
go 500,
6-6, or 5-5, whatever.
Professor Wags, they were trading everybody no matter what happened. I know it's annoying.
You remember that? Because
yes,
if you believe that, wait.
Yes.
Wait. I'm not going to argue with this. I'm not going to argue with this one, Rich. I'm not going to argue with you on this one, Richie. I'm just going to ask you if I should be pissed off. And the reason I ask you, wait. Let me ask you why.
No.
The reason why. Theo Epstein got us a ring in 2016.
Yeah. That's why I said no.
He left as our general manager a couple years ago.
The answer is no.
Whatever. Is that the reason why we didn't even want to? Hold on a second. I'm about to get emotional on this. Is that the fact that it was not Theo, it was somebody else? Is that the reason why we did not even want to think about paying either Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo?
I have an answer, and I'm going to explain why this happened.
Please tell me. Please, this is heartbreaking to me. Please tell me.
They all peaked at the same time, which means that their decline was going to be similarly timed at the same time. And I think the Chicago Cubs knew, in a very honest way, that maybe with the exception of Javi Baez, who I'm still not completely sold on. I don't think that Met experiment worked out. He's in Detroit right now. The point I'm making is this.
Yes, sir.
When Aaron Judge is a great example. I'll use Judge as an example. He wants X amount of years. When we talked about this on the last show, Brett and I. That contract that you get, you're basically getting paid off of stuff that you already did, but stuff that at the end of that contract you probably won't duplicate. And I think the Chicago Cubs saw three dudes. that helped them win a championship, but we're not going to be those guys sooner than later.
Let me get emotional for a second real quick. Okay, fine. Actually, Richie, I agree with you on that argument. It's not even
Dude,
an
Anthony
argument.
Rizzo plays for my team, and I love him.
Whoa.
But he
It's
hits
not-
250.
Richie.
That's not 2016 Rizzo.
Richie, it's not even an argument. It's 100% you are correct on everything you just said. What I'm pissed off about is how do we not take any of those guys? Okay, let's say we can't take all four of them. How do we get
timing thing, Wags?
How do we get rid of all four of them?
It was a timing thing, Wags, because this is the reality. If you let two of them walk and you invest in two of them, you're stripping yourself. Now you're a tweener. You're not rebuilding and you're not competing for a championship. The only thing you're doing is guaranteeing respectability.
Fine. You're a Cubs general manager. What do?
What they did, get young and get good again.
Okay, fine. Great. That's great. I agree with you. That's fine. This is actually another reason why I'm really pissed off about baseball right now. Not baseball and the baseball guys who are watching us and Richie Hicks Jr. show or whatever. What I'm really pissed off about is this. The guys that we got when we got rid of everybody else, they're not 22-year-old kids like we had when we originally got Baez, when we originally got Chris Bryant, when we originally got...
Those are the guys that you're seeing playing right now.
29, 30-year-olds.
The return hasn't hit the major league level yet.
What the we signed Marcus.
The return hasn't hit the major league level yet.
Okay. What do you mean by that? Because
you got prospects in every deal that you made. I
will admit that I do not know what you mean by that.
In every deal that you made, you didn't get you got prospects. In every deal that you made, you got prospects.
What deals?
So what you're saying, Baez, Rizzo, Bryant.
Oh, guys that I have not even heard of yet. Is that what you're saying?
The point is, Wags, is that you got prospects. Now, my question that's layered into this is tanking a thing. The Cincinnati Reds are historically on pace to be the worst team that ever played the game of Major League Baseball.
Hit a home run the other night. I see. Okay. By the way, I thank you, Richie. Before you go into the tanking, before you go into the tanking episode, I do appreciate you educating me on that, what we just talked about, because I was pissed off about the whole Cubs situation, but you kind of enlightened me about like why they're doing what they're doing. So I appreciate that.
I'm going to tell you why you're not. I'm going to tell you why you're not allowed to ever get pissed. Ever with the Cubs, no matter what.
Wait. Can I
ever? Like forever. You can't be mad at the Cubs.
They've already won me a ring in 2016.
No, it's bigger than that. It's not just that. It's not just that.
Go ahead.
My grandfather was a Chicago Cubs fan his whole fucking life.
That's my point.
He died a few months before the Steve Bartman bullshit, and they still fucked it up.
That's my.
He never saw the win. He never saw the win.
Never saw it.
Grandpa died May 19th of 2003, and you know what happened in 2003.
All right.
You got to be happy. They fucking finally did it.
Do not.
You know how many grandfathers?
Do not remind me of 2003, but
you know how many? Forget that. The point I'm making is they did it.
I know.
They did it.
Yeah.
They did it. A generational fucking curse was busted.
By a bunch of kids who didn't care between the ages of 22 and like 27. That's awesome.
They even traded for Chapman.
Huh?
They even traded for Chapman for the World Series run.
Yeah. He actually
you can have him back now.
He wasn't impressive, and he got that 3-run homer he gave up to what's the guy's name? Raja
Davis.
Not even a home run hitter. What's his name?
Raja Davis.
Raja Davis. Yeah. I'm
All right, but
pissed off.
speaking of,
I'm pissed off at Jason Hayward right now. He's not done shit for us in the last 5 years. But anyway,
Wags,
okay, go ahead.
Wags, we're getting on to the final 20-minute mark. We got to get a little speed on this.
Yes, I see what you're looking at.
We just mentioned Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah.
I playfully said you could have him back. Yankees have problems with a season-ending injury to Chad Green, one of their viable middle relief guys. Aroldis Chapman has an Achilles injury. He hasn't been placed on the IL yet, but even before the injury, underperforming. Making saves, but never looking good at it. And my biggest fear with the Yankees, and they're off to a phenomenal start, but my biggest fear with the Yankees going into this year was that I was nervous that they were going to burn out the bullpen. In a way, they haven't exactly done that. The starters have been great. This is attributed to a bad week of the bullpen just not looking that good right now. I think everything in New York is under a microscope. So if Chapman comes out and has a shit ninth inning, everything in New York gets magnified. Ultimately, I believe that the New York Yankees will be moving on from Aroldis Chapman either at the deadline or he's not getting re-signed. Clay Holmes has proven, and I said this on the last show, that he's going to be the dude. But I want to keep it on the Yankees, and this is a far more important topic than the one that I'm speaking on here. Tim Anderson and Josh Donaldson saga. Donaldson has been suspended for a game pending his appeal. In addition to this, Donaldson was put on the COVID IL today. The reason for the suspension, I'll give everyone a quick backstory. I mentioned it on the last show. Donaldson referred to Tim Anderson, who is a black player. Donaldson is a white player.
Yes.
As Jackie, referencing the late, great Jackie Robinson, but more in kind of like a trolling kind of way. Donaldson adamantly denied any racial undertones. Anderson told New York reporters that he felt that it was racially motivated. These two have a history. In Chicago, there was a collision at third. Donaldson was kind of playing the enforcer role, pushing Anderson off at third. Benches cleared, nothing happened. According to Donaldson, he told the media that this has been an ongoing joke between the two of them.
A joke?
Since 2019, because the reason why the Jackie reference, Tim Anderson did an interview in 2019 referencing himself as this year's version, this generation's version of Jackie Robinson. I think there's a combination of some trolling here, but I also think that this is another part of it. Tim Anderson himself was suspended for 5 games after throwing the N-word off of a pitcher from the Kansas City Royals a couple of seasons back. Ultimately, what I think is happening here is that you have two guys that are hotheads. I think Anderson is a bit of a player who likes to provoke, but I also think that Donaldson is cut from the same cloth in the sense that he is a bit of an asshole. If Jack Parkman was a real baseball player, he would be Josh Donaldson. But this is the other part.
Who walked in the show who doesn't know what Parkman, that's Major League.
Yeah, that's Major League, but this is the thing. But this is the thing on this.
He makes the women of Cleveland want to puke. Oh, go ahead, Richie. Sorry.
This is the thing on this.
Yeah.
If Donaldson was shooting this shit as he claimed he did, he didn't veer away from saying that he did it.
All right.
The problem here potentially could be that Tim Anderson allowed this and maybe just let it kind of roll off his back. I do believe that there's a couple of other things at play here. I wouldn't agree with that. Yeah. I do believe that from a psychological level, it could be even Anderson attempting to get his guys going. But my thought on this is a simple one. In the year 2022, unless if this is someone who you truly consider a friend, you can't play around like that. And I'm not defending Tim Anderson either. But I do believe that Josh Donaldson does have a reputation that does tend to precede him, and I'm a Yankee fan. And I'm not saying that he necessarily deserves a game suspension, but I think that in today's climate, sometimes people will go off the handle defending this behavior. And quite frankly, the reason why this behavior can't be defended is because in real life, there are some things that go on that truly are racist. And this is why this is such a sensitive topic, but one that has to be dived into.
That's true. That's absolutely 100% correct. Yeah.
I want to smash.
Go ahead.
I want to smash on this final thought. I will not give the Buffalo shooter any credit as to so much as even dropping his name. I will not drop his name. Oh, in Buffalo, there was a tragedy. 10 people of color.
Yeah,
10
go ahead.
people of color.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
There was a mass murder. And ultimately, this is something that has happened and been perpetuated for far too long.
Yeah.
When I think about the civil rights movement of the 60s, and when I think about thinking that in the year 2022, things are supposed to get better, quite frankly, for people of color, I can't say with a good conscience that they have. And this is not just about Black people. I feel that if you're an American, you have to care. And yes, it hits me at home too, because I'm a light skin. I'm mixed. I'm Italian and I happen to be Puerto Rican. My brother's kids are darker than me. And when I consider, my brother is darker than me. And when I consider what the world and the way of hate in this world, I worry very much so about their futures, about how they are perceived.
That's the best point you made all night, Richie. Go ahead.
And the truth of the matter is that it comes down to flat out, in my opinion, the power of the NRA, where just about anyone can get their hands on a gun. And this mass murderer claimed that he is a white supremacist and that he singled out Black people, people of color. And to think, when you look at the rich history of this country, particularly pertaining to wars, and when you think about how many people of color have served this nation, protected this nation, and to think that this many years removed from slavery and this many years removed from the civil rights movement, it is heartbreaking on a lot of levels that this is something that people of color still have to deal with. The reason why the Josh Donaldson thing matters a little bit more than it could look at the surface is that because it is a microcosm of people being a little too comfortable when it comes to these kind of things. And there is a reason why, you have to wear the shoes. And I wholeheartedly believe that if you don't wear the shoes,
Richie,
you have to be an ally or you have to shut the fuck up.
I want to give you a gold-plated crown for the comments and the bravery, not just the comments you just made, but the bravery of the comments you just made, because I'm with you on every single thing you just fucking said.
And one thing I want to make clear, this isn't about politics, because quite frankly,
I know.
I think you can get a great hand job off of both of them. I don't trust either party, and quite frankly, I think that when it comes to voting time,
either party can get a hand job if you're.
The point I'm making is both parties prey on the wet dream of always forging a divide. But one thing that I will say in my closing thought, and one thing that I have a high faith in, is that I do wholeheartedly believe that while it's easy to make fun of the newer generations on a lot of ways, and we'll be like, oh, they're soft and all this other stuff, the reality is that this country is thousands of years embedded in slave ownership and cotton money, and that's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Old money.
Old money for sure, and systemic situations that have put people in color behind the eight ball from the beginning. And while I don't necessarily believe that every problem is everybody else's problem, so to speak, and what I mean by that is that it is on us. But one thing that bothers me is that when you go to Canada, for instance, I don't necessarily believe that a black Canadian looks at a white Canadian and they have that kind of same heat. I grew up in a community from the youngest of ages where if you were white, you could walk in the black neighborhood at night. If you were black, you could walk in the white neighborhood at night. We played together. We fought together. We won a lot of games together. And ultimately, we gave a shit about each other from the earliest of ages, because two children don't see that shit without a very ugly influence from those that direct them.
That's right.
And unfortunately, this country has gone backwards in a lot of ways when it comes to this.
Right.
They're no longer protecting our children when it comes to valuing gun rights over the safety of our children. They are no longer valuing something as simple as, are you safe to go to the grocery store if you're a person of, not just a person of color? I mean, you have these mass murderers that are killing a lot of people, but this particular situation proves how rampant and how real hatred still is in this country.
That's correct.
And
100%.
I wholeheartedly feel that if you're not trying to be an ally, you're part of the problem as well.
Part of the solution.
That is my final.
Yes, sir.
That is my final thought. I wish I didn't have to speak about something like this, but we can't turn a blind eye to this.
We got to talk about it. We got to deal with it. So I appreciate the Richie Hicks Jr. show as being one of the forerunners of talking about real issues that's going on in this lifetime. So, Richie, let me just give you a praise for talking about this. Nobody wants to, and no one likes to. It's just difficult. It's painful, but you're the man.
I'm not you know what it comes down to, Max?
Go ahead.
It's an ugly world, man. And a lot of things hit. Like the Arbery thing in Georgia was disgusting. There's a lot of things. Dude, I come from a police family.
I know.
So when I say that I am pro-police, yes, I am. But quite frankly, when I think about what occurred in Kenosha, Wisconsin, what occurred in Minneapolis, those are not the actions of police officers that I grew up around. The way that those guys were trained.
Right.
The way that my dad would have handled things. The way that my stepdad would have handled things. I apologize, guys, if I got like a little overhyped on this. But it's something very dear to my heart, because the finality and the truth of the matter is that just because it wasn't my family on this incident doesn't mean that it couldn't be. And quite frankly, I just think we got to start really looking out for one another and seeing one another as one, because at the end of the day, we are all Americans, and that is something that I wholeheartedly have a strong faith in this younger generation about. I thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great night.